Sing!
Hey guys, Jerry here, back with another video. This time I'm making a Genshin video on the highly anticipated character Skirk. So I've basically consolidated the findings from the CN site, and hopefully we are able to learn something from them. So if you guys like this style of content, feel free to subscribe. It really helps me a lot as someone who's new and looking into creating content for the Hoyo games. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, coming over to a quick overview of Skirk, she's going to be a Cryo sword character with no elemental energy. Basically, she's going to be like Maravika in the sense that she has her own burst and energy system tied to her kit. So what she has here is this serpent energy, and it's going to have a maximum of 100 points. And how she wants to generate it is through the use of her elemental skill and her passives, which are really important to her and will be talked about later on. And also for her burst, it's going to be unaffected by the elemental particles from the normal energy system. So Skirk is going to have two distinct playstyles based on the elemental skill. And the first is being the on-field normal attack, which is when you tap the elemental skill. And the other one is going to be the quick sword burst playstyle, which is when you hold the elemental skill. So these two playstyles will be talked about later on when we go through her kit. Now moving on to Skirk's passive talents, and we're going to talk about it first because it's going to be important for her kit and it's going to affect her team building and how she's generally played. So for her Essential 1 talent, if the team triggers a Freeze, Superconduct, Cryo Swirl or Cryo Crystallize, basically any form of cryo reaction, it's going to spawn this Void Rift on the field, and this can be generated for every 2.5 seconds for a maximum of 3 rifts at a time. And basically if you're in the midst of battle and it's really chaotic and you can't tell how many rifts are on the field, the game actually provides a UI indicator next to Skirk, and it comes in the form of these 3 diamonds. So if all 3 diamonds are lit up, it means there's 3 Void Rifts already on the field. So each Void Rift is going to be able to give 8 Serpent energy to Skirk when she absorbs it, and how she's going to absorb it is through the use of her Elemental Burst when she's in her normal attack playstyle form, or when using her charge attack in the normal attack playstyle form as well, or lastly, while holding down the Elemental skill. Now for her Ascension 4 talent, when Hydro or Cryo characters accept Skirk hit enemies, she's going to gain this Death Crossing stack for 20 seconds for a maximum of 3 Death Crossing stacks. So what this each stack does is that it's going to give her a percentage damage buff increase for her normal attack and her burst. And as you can see, the difference between the second and third stack is going to be really huge. So this indicates that she's actually only going to want only Hydro or Cryo characters in her team. And if that's not enough to prove it to you guys, her passive talent, if the team consists of at least 1 Hydro and Cryo character, and only consisting of Hydro and Cryo characters in total, her elemental skill level of the team increases by 1. So this already shows that she only wants Hydro or Cryo characters in the team. Now moving on to Skirk's kit explanation, where we'll be taking a look more into her elemental skill and the type of burst that she has. So for her tap elemental skill, which is going to be tied to her on-field normal attack playstyle, she's going to gain 45 Serpent energy, and she's going to enter this 7-phase flash mode, which is indicative of her change in outfit here. So what this does is that her normal, charge and plunging attacks will all convert to cryo damage, and she's going to receive a huge increase in multipliers. Her range of her attack also will be increased to AoE, as seen here in this clip against the wolves, and her interruption resistance also will be increased as shown here against the Rune Guard spinning attack. So what this shows me is that she's most likely going to power creep our current set of cryo DPSs that we have in terms of the AoE attacks, because most of the current set of cryo DPSs that we have right now are not going to be able to output this much AoE in their normal attacks compared to Skirk. The 7-phase flash mode also has a total duration of 12.5 seconds, although this is going to be dependent on the Serpent energy that she has currently. Because while she's in this mode, her Serpent energy is going to start draining continuously, and once it hits 0, it's going to take her out of this form. So 45 Serpent energy isn't going to be enough to last for the whole 12.5 seconds duration. And this is when you're going to want to trigger her Ascension 1 talent in order to spawn more Void Rifts and gain more Serpent energy, as each Rift is going to allow her to gain 8 energy. And also while in this mode, she's going to change her burst into a non-damaging form, and this is going to give her bonus damage to the next 10 normal attack hits that she has, inclusive of the charge and plunging attack. And as we talked about just now, using this burst is going to allow her to absorb the Void Rifts, and this is going to affect the bonus damage. where it's going to increase up to a total of 20% bonus damage when she absorbs all 3 Void Waves. Moving on to Skirk's whole elemental skill, which is going to be tied to her Quick Sword Burst playstyle. She's going to similarly gain 45 Serpent energy, and she's going to enter this high movement speed mode in this mermaid form, which allows her to move over water for a total of 3 seconds. And this is probably going to put her quite high up in the exploration tier list. So while in this mode, it's also going to enable her burst when she reaches 50 Serpent energy points. And you're not going to want to use this at this point of time because every energy point above 50 gives her a 32.85% attack to the burst, which caps out at a maximum of 12 points, which is roughly 394% attack boost to the burst. So what this means is that you actually want to use the burst when you have 62 Serpent energy or above to optimize her damage and maximize it as much as possible. Now with Skirk's kit fully explained, I must emphasize to you guys to only choose one playstyle for her. This is because her burst changes based on the type of elemental skill that you use, whereby after using a tap elemental skill, her burst actually becomes non-damaging, and after the 7th phase flash mode ends, her Serpent energy is going to be at 0 points, which means you're going to be unable to use her damaging burst. So for the CN side, they actually recommend you guys to only choose the on-field normal attack playstyle instead, because of ease of use, whereby it's more beginner friendly, and it's also going to require less investment in terms of the teams required for Skirk and her Constellation, which we'll be talking about later on. For Skirk's artifact set, it's going to be very straightforward, so I'll be brief on this. Her best in slot is going to be the Finale of the Deep, which is made for her. The second option is going to be the Merituse Hunter set, and that's only if you're going to use Furina in a team, otherwise it's not really usable for her. And the third option is going to be Blizzard Strayer. So for her sense, it's going to be attack percent. Her Goblet is going to be Cryo damage percent, or attack percent as the second option. Her Circlet is going to be crit rate percent or crit damage percent, and attack percent as the second option. Now whether to use crit rate or crit damage percent is going to be dependent on your weapon that you use for Skirk. So if let's say if you're using a crit rate main stat sword, then you're going to want to use probably crit damage percent Circlet instead to maximize the CV value that you can gain. So for the substat, Skirk is going to follow the usual attack PPS. So she's going to want all the crit rate, crit damage, and then followed by attack percent, and lastly flat attack. Lucky for her, her energy regen is not needed, so she's easier to build as well. Now for those of you contemplating on whether the attack percent Circlet or Goblet is going to be a big difference from the main options, I found some testing done by the CN site, and it's actually going to differ based on what are the playstyles you chose for your Skirk. So for the on-field normal attack playstyle Skirk, the crit rate Circlet is still going to be better by about 5.3%, and the Cryo Goblet is going to be better by 1.5%. So maybe those of you seeing this 1.5% is actually going to want to use an attack percent Goblet if the attack percent Goblet has a better CV rating than your Cryo Goblet. For the Quick Sword Burst playstyle though, it's going to actually be a bigger difference. So your crit Circlet is going to be 7% better, and your Cryo Goblet is going to be about 3.3% better. So just choose whichever CV rating I think is better in this case. Now looking at Skirk's signature and her comparison to the other swords available, you're only going to want to probably use 2 other swords if you're not going to pull for the signature, and that's going to be Ayaka's and Ayato's signature weapon, because they're going to have an 84% and 83% damage comparison to the signature respectively. And for the other swords available here, you should probably pull for the signature because it's going to be more than a 20% damage drop off. However, if you look at the numbers here and they seem to fit what you like, then you can just use the weapon. Now on this column right here is going to be the CV value compared to the signature, and basically all the swords available in this table is going to have a higher CV rating. So if you're going to use Skirk's signature, you're going to want to make up for the CV value in the artifacts. Now for the other options not mentioned in the table, you're going to be able to use the Summit Shaper, the Calamity of Ashru, the Sturdy Bone, and the Blackcliff Longsword. Now for the CN side, they're going to recommend you guys to actually get the signature for the performance and also for the aesthetics. Because for Skirk, she's going to be similar to Alakino, where if she doesn't use her signature weapon, her attack animations is going to look very weird, as you can see here.
Brother, what's that?
Now, for the recommended teammates for Skirk, I'm going to split this into 5 stars and 4 stars. And basically for every single one of the teams, you're going to want to make sure you do not use any non-cryo or hydro characters, as these are going to make 2 of Skirk's passive redundant. So for the highest priority 5 star, it's going to be none other than Escoffier, and she's basically made for Skirk. She's the only cryo hydro shred character that we have in Genshin right now, and she also fits with Skirk in that she only requires a cryo hydro team as well. For the second highest priority is going to be none other than Furina. She's going to be a hydro applicator with the damage buffs being the most meta in the game right now. So for Furina and Escoffier, they're going to be the meta pairing for Skirk, and you're going to want to use them whenever if you have them. Now for the last slot teammates though, CN side recommends to use Yelan, as she's one of the best hydro applicators still in the game, and she helps to reduce the energy requirement needed for Furina, so you're going to be able to build more damage for both of them. If you do not have Yelan, you are able to use Silali and Shenhe as well, as they are going to be able to buff cryo damage for Skirk. And lastly, you can use Mona, where she's going to be able to provide damage buff with a burst, and she's also going to be able to carry the TTDS, which provides attack percent for Skirk. Now, one exception to the last slot teammate is it only if you're playing the burst playstyle Skirk, and that is when you're going to want to have a DPS in that last slot instead. So this is why CN recommends to actually use the normal attack playstyle Skirk, as it requires more investment if you're going to use the burst playstyle. So basically when you use the burst playstyle, it's recommended to have a 5-star on-field DPS character to pair with the burst playstyle Skirk. And the best in slot is going to be Novelet, as it's the most meta hydro character right now. But if you don't have Novelet, you're going to be able to use Ayaka, Ayato, Cryo Tesli, and Childe respectively. Now for the 4-star teammates of Skirk, do keep in mind that this is going to be based on the C6 performance for them. So we're going to start off with Dahlia, the new hydro character that's going to come out together in Skirk banner. And he's going to be a very good hydro applicator in the same level as Xingqiu, except that he provides shields instead, and he's going to be able to buff the attack speed of Skirk. However, if you are not going to be able to pull for a C6 Dahlia, because pulling for 4 stars in Genshin is already a pain in the ass, then you're going to be able to use the other 3 options available here recommended by CN. So the first is going to be Xingqiu using the Noblesse artifact set, and he's still going to be the best 4-star hydro applicator in the game with the damage reduction and interruption resistance increase that he provides. If you don't have him, you can use Layla with a Tenacity artifact set, and she's also going to be able to buff the normal attack and provide shield for Skirk. And lastly, you can use Candace with the Noblesse artifact set, and she's going to be able to buff the damage and normal attack of Skirk. Now, if you don't have any of these characters, then the other options that you can use for Skirk is going to be Charlotte, Mika, and Rosaria. And if you really don't have the 5-star characters and the 4-star characters mentioned here, then you can just use whatever hydro or cryo characters that you have with you. Now, just one thing to take note is that CN side recommends you guys to use a 2 hydro setup in order to reduce the energy requirements for them. So basically, you're going to want to have a 1 cryo and 2 cryo character setup together with Skirk. Okay, we are going to take a look at some of the showcases from CN on Skirk now, and the first is going to be the on-field normal attack playstyle. The rotation is going to always start off with setting up the elemental reactions from the other characters to spawn the 3 Void Wisps. Then you're going to switch to Skirk and use tap elemental skill. Now this is going to be the suggested attacking sequence. You're going to use the elemental burst to buff and absorb the Void Wisps, and use a 2 normal attack and 1 charge attack pattern. The charge attack is going to absorb the Void Wisp spawn and extend the 7-phase flash mode to its full duration. Now damage output is really high, as you can see against this local legend Liam boss, and it's a really simple rotation being executed here. But do keep in mind that this is probably one of Skirk's best team to use. Now, all the builds for the characters are going to be C0R0 for all the 5-star characters, and Dahlia is the only one going to be the C6. This next showcase is going to be the Quick Sword Burst playstyle, and Novelet is at C1R1, while the rest of the 5 stars are C0R0. So for the rotation, as usual, you're going to start with setting up the elemental reactions, and when Skirk switches in, you're going to hold elemental skill to absorb the Void Wisp and immediately burst to deal damage. then you can switch back to your main DPS and continue with that main DPS attacking sequence. Skirk's burst damage is really impressive right here for free spawn, doing roughly around 500k damage in total, which is pretty good damage without reverse melt multipliers. And this is going to be the C1 R1 Novelist build for you to take a look. This next showcase is going to be the 4-star characters with on-field normal attack Skirk in Abyss, and all the 4 stars seen here are at C6. So you're going to see that the damage is actually quite good for Skirk, although there is currently a 75% cryo damage increase in this Abyss floor. The last showcase is going to show Skirk's performance with a non-cryo hydro character in the team, and this is going to be C0R1 Zilonen, and yet the damage drop-off is actually insane. The team performance is on par or maybe even slightly lesser than the 4-star character team that was just shown earlier on. So this should really emphasize on why you should stick to a only cryo hydro team for Skirk. Now for Skirk's Constellation, we're only going to take a look at the damage increase. So for the descriptions of the constellations, you're going to want to look at other YouTube videos with the early access content out there. Now for the testing done on this, they were done on the on-field normal attack and the quicksword burst playstyle, and these are the teams used for the testing. So for the C1, it's going to be similar in terms of the damage increase. The on-field is going to have a 22% damage increase, and the quicksword burst is going to have a 20% damage increase. However, on the C2 side, this is where you're going to see a big increase for the quicksword burst, in that it's going to be a 44% damage increase compared to the on-field normal attack playstyle, which has a 25% damage increase. So this is one other reason why the CN side also says that the quicksword burst playstyle requires more investment, because you're going to only notice a really big difference when it comes to using the C2. Now for the C3, the damage increase is only going to be the burst level up, so it's going to have a 16% damage increase for the burst. For the C4, it's going to be similar for both, in that it's going to be about 11% damage increase. The C5 is going to be the normal attack level increase, so it's going to be a 16% increase for the normal attack. And lastly, for the C6, it's going to be a 31% damage increase for the on-field normal attack playstyle, and it's going to be a 28% damage increase for the quicksword burst playstyle. So you can choose whichever you want to focus on, and I would probably recommend the C2. Now coming to the end of the Skirk CN analysis, we're going to take a look at CN final thoughts, and it's going to be that Skirk is definitely a tier 0 character in their eyes, even without the Escoffier as a support. She's still going to be one of the top cryo DPSs once she comes out. Her performance in terms of DPS is also going to be really good in F2P teams, as seen in the showcases, even with the cryo hydro limitation for her. And you're also going to make sure that you're not going to use any non-cryo hydro characters, as you're going to lose out on her damage through the passives. And for min-maxers, you're going to want to invest into her best teammates first before going for her constellation. So you're going to go invest into Escoffier, Furina, Yelan, all these characters first, before actually going to look into her C1 and C2. Now for my thoughts, if you're going to choose to play quicksword burst playstyle, then it's probably better to invest into a C2. I think the damage percentage increase is going to be very significant compared to just playing the normal attack playstyle. And lastly, you're probably just going to want to get her signature weapon to avoid that really cursed look without it. So with that, we've wrapped up the CN analysis for Skirk. Hope all the consolidated findings from the CN sources are able to help you guys make a decision on what to invest in for Skirk. So all the best for your Skirk pools. Come join me on Twitch and take care, guys.